Welcome to another movie review, and today I'm going to be talking about the Netflix original or Netflix exclusive, whatever, film Cargo. Now, this is actually the first film that I'm reviewing that's ever been suggested by a Patreon, by a patron. By a patron on Patreon who supports me at the $4 tier. Now, if you're at the $4 tier, you get to select a movie for me to watch and review for that month, and the movie that was selected this month was Cargo. And this is it's the Martin Freeman zombie apocalypse film shot in Australia. I always kind of like those apocalypse films that take place in Australia, kind of like the Mad Max stuff. I guess you don't really have to do much to Australia to make it look like a post-apocalyptic scenario, so maybe that's why they do it. But this I had previously watched this movie before this review, so I was kind of on the fence if I was going to go back and rewatch it. I wasn't sure if I would have time or not, but I still, it wasn't too long ago that I watched it, so I didn't end up rewatching it. But I do remember the film, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Uh, I did like the film a lot. I enjoyed it. It was kind of refreshing to see amongst other zombie movies. I almost wouldn't really call it a zombie movie. It, I mean, the fact that it was a zombie apocalypse seemed to be much more important to the plot and the specific scenario that goes on. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's kind of a time frame going on throughout this episode, and you wouldn't get this. You wouldn't get this time frame. You wouldn't get this kind of ticking time clock, so to speak, if this wasn't a zombie apocalypse movie. And I think that whole scenario of time running down, I think that creates a lot of suspense in the movie that really works for it. I think Martin Freeman does a really good job in this movie, as he's always good in whatever he's in. It's to be expected. He's a really good actor. None of the other people are familiar to me or anybody I recognize, but they all did good. Nobody stood out, I would say, as much as Martin Freeman did. The movie was kind of sad, a little depressing, honestly. And it hit you with that early on too. Very early on in the movie, you get this kind of like gut punch, and you just kind of gotta sit with that for a while, and you stay sitting with it until it kind of until the story kind of finishes off, and you're like, okay, you get this little, you get this sigh of relief as things come to a close. But it's really much more subdued, and I think that's the thing that works best for this movie, is that it's really, it's much more, it's kind of, I don't want to say slower, but it kind of is slower, especially compared to other zombie movies. You compare this to like World War Z, where they're like climbing on top of each other and leaping off of helicopters and stuff. So it's definitely much more subdued, much more slower. It really character driven, and I think that's kind of refreshing to see amongst a zombie movie, which I wouldn't even really call this a zombie movie. I would more just call this a post-apocalyptic movie. And I guess the method of the apocalypse doesn't always matter in a post-apocalyptic movie. And usually, I suppose, with other zombie movies, a zombie movie doesn't have to be specifically post-apocalyptic. A lot of times you see in zombie movies where the movie is apocalypse, not post-apocalyptic. I guess there's like a difference. It's about the zombies actually starting up and things slowly starting to decline, which I do kind of like those a little bit more. I do like to see the decline instead of, I guess I would say I like the first season of Walking Dead versus the later seasons once all the bad stuff has already happened. I like to see shit hitting the fan. I don't like to see the after effects as much. I like both, but I do definitely like to see. I don't know, I'm veering off topic here, but it was a pretty good movie. I did like it a lot. I don't know if I'll ever see it again. I guess that's one thing to say. The movie didn't sit with me enough that I think I'm going to be seeing it again anytime soon. Maybe a couple years down the line, I might see it again. But it's definitely not one of those movies that left a really, really strong impact on me personally. And that's just when I'm talking about extreme personal bias, what I like in a movie, what I look for in a movie. So, yes, I will admit that the movie is a very good. It's a very good movie. Yeah, I mentioned the acting is good. I really like, I suppose, the pacing, you could say. This is honestly, I feel like this is the hardest I've ever tried in a movie review to sound like I know what I'm talking about. So, I hope it was worth it. And I think I'm just gonna end it with there, and I will see you guys next time.